All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank everybody for coming out this afternoon. Shall we get started? So first of all, my name is Eric Malice. Some of you people I know some new names out here, so thank you for coming. Quick intro about myself. My name is Eric Malice. I am the Chief Product Officer here at National Test Systems, and I'm also the co-founder. I've got a little over 20 years experience, probably a little over 21 now, so it seems longer. And when my brother and I started this company back in the early 2000s, he was always good at business. He was a great salesman. He was great at inventory management and all this other stuff that I have like zero interest in. But he was excellent at it. So he left me to my own devices, which the thing that mattered most to me was learning everything I could get my hands on about the intricacies of drug testing, all about clinical toxicology. I wanted to know how the drugs work. I wanted to know how the tests work. I wanted to know how it works within your body and the different specimen types and all that good stuff. And 20 years later, I'm still driving and always studying and always learning more. And that's important. I think education is important. Judging by the number of people we have here today, you guys also like to get some new information. That's excellent. That makes me very proud. It makes me very happy that we do this. Really, we're all about the education. I mean, anyone can send you a test cup. In addition to just standing behind the product we're sending, we want to make you understand it. I want to get as much information into you as I have, hopefully. So that's why I'm grateful when I see a turnout like this. It warms my heart, really. So I'm glad for that. Thank you very much for coming. Today is in our ongoing series of educational webinars. And again, we bring these to you free of charge because we think education is important, whether it be a new drug like we're going to talk about today, whether it's a little bit more of a technical nature about how something reacts or doesn't react on the test, whatever it might be. We want to get you that information if it's going to make your daily drug testing duties a little bit easier or at least a little bit more insightful. So we've got about 15 minutes or so today at the end, which we'll do take your questions. As you can see on the left panel of your screen, you should have the second button down that says questions. If you would reserve that for your questions, you can put the question up any time, but I am going to wait till we're done with the presentation before I address them. You have the chat option too. If you wanted to chat amongst yourself for whatever reason, that's fine. We encourage you guys, engaging with one another, not just me. So that's fine. But do try and keep the questions tab clean so I can get through it when we're done with the presentation. Just know, for some reason, we're unable to get to everybody's question today. I know that your consultant will be reaching out in the next couple of days and obviously answering any questions we might have missed. But they're also going to give you an opportunity to suggest future topics for other webinars. Or more than that, they'll also give you an opportunity to schedule a one-on-one training between me and your staff, either on this subject or a different subject, whatever you find might be helpful to make your daily drug testing duties a little bit easier. And then one last thing for the people who were not able to make it today, just know that we are recording this. Yes, I remembered to hit record this time. So this will be posted to a recording of this will be posted to our website within the next day or so. I often get requests for the slideshow. I don't know if it's that helpful without me yammering over it. But if you want to put in that request, you can use the chat tab, or when it ends, you'll also I think it's a pop-up for a poll and a comment section, so you can leave the comment there. We go through those pretty thoroughly just to make sure we get to everybody's questions. So without further ado, what are we talking about? Today is a very hot button topic. It's just incredible how exponentially this has blown up in the news. You guys talk amongst yourselves and with colleagues, it's a very common discussion these days. Yes, we are discussing Xylazine. It is a drug that is most common street name these days is Tranq. And more than anything, what is, almost every illicit substance that comes out, has a starting point. This was originally used as a veterinary sedative. But obviously, if we're having a discussion about it now, it's gone much further beyond that. So let's break it down a little bit further. So first of all, it was discovered in 1962 in Germany, and it was discovered by chemists working at Bayer Pharmaceuticals. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these substances that we run across that turn out to be very dangerous and very prevalent in our society or on our streets, as you'd say, started out with great intentions. Chemists are always looking to build a better mousetrap. They're looking to find medications that will do what they needed to do without having all the negative side effects. So a lot of these things, again, are started with good intentions, and then somehow they filter out into the street, where obviously we, as a society, completely abuse it and ruin their original intent. That's nature of society anyway. So after it was discovered in the 60s, it was tested on animals, and they even did some human trials in the early 70s. After the human trials, they said, you know what, this is just too many negative side effects. It doesn't do anything better than the meds we already have that get this done. And in addition to that, it also has much greater dangerous side effects, so not fit for human use. So it did get approved for veterinary use. And that's really where we saw it the most up until about 2015 or so. And we'll get into the history in a second. So basically, I oversimplified. It's basically a sedative. It's also a muscle relaxer. It's also an analgesic, pain reliever, and it's also an anesthetic. Although as an anesthetic, it's typically only used in smaller animals. In fact, there's a very common name for the xylazine ketamine combination, and it's called the rodent cocktail. So again, a lot of smaller animals, rats and mice and hamsters, that sort of thing. It makes for a very good anesthetic to do surgery or whatever else you might need to put an animal under anesthesia for. So again, it started out, pretty innocuous, but now, of course, we're seeing it more than anything. We're seeing it commonly cut into fentanyl. When I say cut, think of it as an additive or an adulterant into the fentanyl to make the drug go a longer way, basically. If you guys are all in this business, so you probably understand the principle behind cutting drugs to make a larger quantity than what you really have. So that's really where we're seeing it most commonly, is cut into fentanyl, whether it be in the powder on the street or whether we see it in the counterfeit pressed pills that we see a lot of on the streets these days. It is sometimes being found as a contaminant in cocaine and methamphetamines and other street drugs, but most of what that is because of just poor workspaces. Basically, we've talked about this when we talk about our fentanyl webinar. It's just people are they're not being very careful when they're mixing this, and if some residues on the table when they're they go to switch over and start weighing the cocaine up, you're going to end up with the xylazine inside of that as well, or the methamphetamine, or like I said, most of the other street drugs. This is really not done on a major scale. It's not like the cartels are doing this. They like to have the purest product they can put out there. It's typically by low level or even street level dealers. Probably not the kid in high school, but whoever's the one step above that is probably trying to make the most out of his money, basically, or out of their money, I should say. So it is incredibly climbing. You can see this chart on the screen right now. So we first started seeing it around 2010. And around between 2010 and 2015, the percentage of overdose deaths, opioid overdose deaths, out of those, I forget the exact number for those years, but about 2% of them also included xylazine. Jump ahead to 2016, 11% of all opioid overdose deaths contain xylazine. In 2017, we had a slight dip down to 10%. However, 2018, we went up to 18%. And in 2019, which is the last year we have full reporting on, it went up to 31%. Every news article I can find, every study I can find hints that this number is still increasing, but I couldn't find, number one, a source that I trusted enough to share it with you, and certainly not a chart to make it an easy, digestible piece of information. But think about that. In 2019, there were 48,000 opioid overdose deaths. Out of those, 16,000 of them also included somebody had xylazine in their system at the same time. Again, it doesn't show that that is what caused the overdose death, but obviously it has an impact on it. If we extrapolate that further, the opioid overdose deaths for 2021 was 80,000. So you can imagine we're going to be over 30,000 of those containing xylazine, assuming it stays exactly where it is. So it's a lot of xylazine we're seeing out on the street. Now, why is it a problem? Well, obviously, fentanyl's a problem to begin with, but if you're adding a sedative to the mix, so, basically opioids are sedatives to an extent. They're really analgesics, but basically they depress breathing, they depress heart rate, blood pressure, all of that. So when you add a sedative to the mix, all those risks get that much stronger, much worse. So anytime you're mixing medications like that, it's dangerous. It's very dangerous. So again, I don't have the exact numbers of how many of those 31% wouldn't have died without the xylazine being there, but you can bet it's it's a good portion of them. If I do find that information, obviously I'll update it. We sometimes post comments on the recording on the webinar. So if you go to our page, if there's an update, it's typically where it's going to show up. And then the worst of it, well, not the worst of it, but something else that's really bad is it causes necrosis of the skin. Now, I blurred this photo because I didn't want to do anything like this to you without warning. And from here, it almost looks like some guy just got some cool new forearm tattoos. If you have a strong stomach and you want to see what I'm talking about, on the left panel underneath the chats button, there is a handouts button. And it comes with a warning. It says right there, graphic image. But that is basically an unblurred version of this particular image. Again, it is not for the weak of stomach. It is horrifying. So click it at will, but don't say I didn't warn you. So yeah, it's on you. So about this necrosis. So we have not been able to determine what about xylazine is causing the necrosis of the skin. Inherently, xylazine shouldn't do it. Again, it's been a medication used by vets for 50 years almost. So they're not exactly sure of the mechanism. However, right before I started today, and again, I don't know if this is a reliable source, but I do follow a bunch of medical doctors on Twitter. Basically, he had shown a photo of two different xylazines. One was the actual veterinary version, the kind that's produced by pharmaceutical companies, and another one was a street version of xylazine. And they were going to be doing some laboratory testing to see if the makeup, if any of the impurities, for example, in the xylazine or anything like that, are responsible for the skin necrosis. But it's scary stuff. If you've got a strong stomach and you want to see ones that are even worse than this one, just Google xylazine necrosis, and it's horrifying. So this is something that's definitely important for us to know about, talk about, looking at the picture option. So where's it coming from? So again, it's been a veterinary medication for, like I said, almost 50 years. So some of it is diversion from veterinary settings, most usually from equine vets. A lot of the larger animals, horses, elk, deer, that sort of thing. Some of those might be a little bit easier for them to divert a human-sized dose to a buddy or a friend or a low-level dealer or something like that. But really, most of what we're seeing on the street now is being imported from China. Sound familiar? And that's basically, we've seen this before. We've heard this song before. So again, this is the picture you're looking at here is actually a screen grab from a website, a Chinese research chemical company. This is what the fentanyl ads used to look like if you went on these places. So this, if you're familiar with heroin at all, you should recognize the word quinine in here. So they're basically selling this particular group of chemicals together. It's specifically made to cut into opioids. Again, if you're familiar with heroin, quinine was very commonly used as a cut for heroin. Procaine as well. Not familiar with the tetracine or tetracaine, but apparently that's a numbing agent as well. You can see it says xylazine. So this is a combination of substances that's being sold and shipped to the U.S. for the sole purpose, well, it's being shipped everywhere, but for the sole purpose and the sole intent of someone cutting their opioid supply with this substance. So hopefully, we did finally see a crackdown on, Chinese imports of fentanyl and the precursor chemicals to fentanyl. So hopefully we'll see a similar cracking down here. Of course, with fentanyl, the cartels took over manufacturing process, so it didn't really slow that down, unfortunately. But something like xylazine, I think if we get that done, if we're able to, prevent China from exporting it or U.S. from importing it, I think that xylazine isn't going to be a long-term issue like fentanyl. I try to bring you good news when I can. And I think that's, in all of this, that's probably the only really good news is that I don't see this as being a 10-year epidemic, ongoing like we see with fentanyl. So that's good. So what can we do about it? Well, you've been to my webinars where I've given you examples of substances that you need to be aware of, and then I have to tell you, you can't do anything about it because nobody has a test for it yet. So this is one of those ones that timed out perfectly. We have a test for it. Yay. Just came in like 3 days ago, literally. So right now we have the loose strip, which is a picture similar to what you see on the right, which is fine. Functions exactly the same as, as a regular dip test like the one on the left. It can be a little bit messier because you're not holding the plastic casing. So, I advise gloves, but they are available now. So theoretically, if you're here with us today, you've spoken to someone once in the past or have an ongoing relationship with someone here at National Test Systems, reach out to them, leave a comment here. If not, and we can make sure we get someone to you to find out about obtaining these. And I hate to use this term because it's silly, but act fast, because these things have been in, people have been clamoring for these for months, if not years. So of course it's first come, first serve. It does seem to be, there's not going to be any real, bottleneck on these. So we should be able to stay in inventory and keep everybody supplied as needed. But just know they are available right now. Gladly get these right out to you. And then lastly, as far as testing, again, these are urine tests, but you can also use these as a powder test or a surface test. So if you are doing harm reduction or something like that, where you want to see if this local supply has xylazine in it, a couple of drops of water with a little bit of powder, and you'll be able to use one of these tests to determine if the powder or the substance that you're testing contains xylazine. Won't tell you how much, won't tell you what else it contains, but at least you'll know whether it's xylazine is in there or if it's xylazine free. And then lastly, it looks like the urine, again, this is a very new substance, very, very new for a substance of abuse. So the best information I can find right now looks like about a 4 to 5 day window of detection after ingestion. I usually will try to err on the side of caution, so I probably should have said 3 to 4 days. If you guys start using these, any feedback would be greatly appreciated. Again, these are brand new, so we want to get as much feedback as we can, make sure if there's a problem, number one, we address it. But if people have good things to tell us about it, we can help other folks by sharing that information as well. All right, great. Looks like we've got some questions, so I will get to those. Janet asks, is xylazine responsive to Narcan? No, it is not. Good question. Obviously good question because 2 people asked the same question. Yeah, unfortunately, Narcan, and maybe it's time for a webinar on Narcan, but Narcan is basically what they call an opioid antagonist. It basically kicks all the opioids off the opioid receptors in your body, basically rendering it neutral. Because xylazine is not an opioid and it doesn't work with the opioid receptors in your body, it will not have, Narcan will not have any effect on xylazine overdose. So the treatment obviously is the Narcan for the fentanyl that probably contained it. And then, whatever standard treatment it is for sedative overdoses, ask somebody who's got more letters after their name. All right, Megan says, I would like to get testing supplies for xylazine. Xylazine, perfect, Megan. Again, these comments will be saved, so we will know a little bit more. I will be able to see that you asked this question, make sure one of us gets back to you on that. Mike, what causes a necrosis? Again, we don't know yet, unfortunately. The exact mechanism might have to do with an impurity from street xylazine. As soon as I get information on that, I will absolutely share it. Edward confirms Narcan doesn't work. Carolyn Johnson, good question, Carolyn. So because it's so new, we actually, we're a distributor for many different manufacturers. We actually have 2 different brands competing right now to get us these tests. One of them picked 250 nanograms per milliliter as their cutoff level. The other manufacturer chose 500 nanograms per milliliter as their cutoff level. Unfortunately, I can't find enough information to know who got it right or if neither of them got it right. I mean, not every substance is, obviously is created the same. So something where you would expect to have, a urine level of somewhere between, 1,000 and 3,000, something like gabapentin, for example, we see urine levels over 50,000. So, you have to, hopefully they did more research than I was able to get done before this. And we'll see. And then the other problem, or once the laboratory is also going to confirm these for us, then we can start to look at the actual levels that are present and see if one really got it right and one didn't, or they were both fine and one just played it safe. So I apologize that I don't have a straight answer for you on that one, Carolyn. Jennifer Anderson also asked about testing supplies. Great, I'll make sure that gets over to you. And then Ronald William asks, are the Xylazine test strips only for forensic use like the fentanyl? Yes, at this time, these are currently forensic use only. If you're in healthcare and you're a CLIA waive facility, much like fentanyl testing for urine, you're not supposed to use Xylazine testing for urine. Again, I don't think that rule applies if you're testing just surfaces, if you're doing harm reduction, that sort of thing. But if you were testing human specimen for the reason of making a determination of healthcare, then yes, you require CLIA waive tests, which this doesn't fall into that category as of yet. Hopefully, fentanyl will probably come first before Xylazine, but we shall see. All right, great. Looks like everybody's been answered. Great. Oh, no, one more. Sorry. Oh, is there any treatment for the before necrosis sets in? Will Xylazine? Yeah, necrosis, from what I've seen. Oh, yeah, why did that scroll all the way down? Sorry about that. I missed a couple of questions. Let me back up a second. IRA, do you still offer free testing, free training? Yes. Again, as I mentioned in the beginning, your consultant may reach out to you in the next couple of days. If you want a further conversation on this, or really any subject, please ask him. We're busy these days, but we're always going to try and make time to teach, because that's the biggest part of this. Any classes or information on kratom? Latanya, yes. The easiest one, the quickest one would do. I did something like this, a webinar on kratom, probably last year sometime. There is a recording on our website. If you prefer a live training, so we can actually ask and answer questions, please reach out to your consultant directly if you've got one. If not, again, we're all going to see these chats, and we should be able to get to you by your contact information from when you registered, and we'll make sure somebody reaches out. Joseph asked, before necrosis set in, will Xylazine produce a rash? I think that in general, with the necrosis as a whole, as a disease, yes, it starts small and in probably patchy areas, and then will snowball from there. Basically, I don't have enough medical background to tell you exactly what to look for, Joseph. I apologize for that. If I can find some good information, we'll have your contact information, so I will definitely share. Joyce, same question, necrosis, for treatment for the necrosis. Again, that would be something I'd want to check with a medical doctor on before I start giving advice on it. But if I can find any solid information, I would share that. Michael, testing supplies, doctor, yes, same answer that above. Yeah, forensic use only for now, so not CLIA approved. Robin asks if it's considered a benzo. It is not. It's a completely different class of substance. While it has similar effects as benzos and similar effects as barbiturates, it's a completely different substance. So it would not fall into the benzo class, nor would it react to a benzo test. All right, now it looks like I think we got to the bottom, right? Yeah. All right, I'm not scrolling anymore, so that must be all of them. Listen, again, thank you guys so much for coming. It really, it means a lot to us to know that, again, I know we love sharing information. It just makes me happy when I see people willing to share their time to let us bring them information. It's everything I could ask for. So thank you all very much. We'll see you again on the next webinar. And until next time, keep on testing.